YouTube, welcome in. We have some new breaking news in the NACS scene. JT, longtime NA IGL, known for his time on Complexity, coming over from South Africa, is rumored to be the next IGL for Team Liquid. I have some thoughts. So, JT has been a NAIGL for a very long time, really grinding his way through Tier 2 and has been on a number of teams in NA with Tier 2 players that have come and gone. But JT has always kind of stood strong. And it's pretty interesting to see. I think it's interesting to have an NAIGL on Team Liquid because it's been a while. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and actually say that this is a genuine chance for an NAIGL to prove themselves. And I think that's the first time I've seen that in a long time. And I'll be real, I think JT has earned this. JT moved over with, I think, a full South African team. And then, just kind of played his way through. And especially over the last couple of years, I don't think anybody could take away from him the fact that he has, at the very least, overperformed. And probably the best thing that you could say about an IGL is that they got the most out of their parts and really made each of the players around him play better than they ever have. I'd argue that basically every player that either left or got poached played significantly worse. And add in even more so that JT played with a player like Elige, who we know has the highest of highs, but maybe has some sort of reputation between being a little bit of a hothead or just at least a personality, right? To say the least. And JT, compared to Kerrigan, compared to all these other players, was able to get the most out of Elige. And I would argue probably the best we've ever seen Elige in, was it 2022, I believe, 2023? And so, yeah, it's just what I would say is a long time coming for the best NAIGL, I would argue, to be on the best team in NA. It just makes a lot of sense. And why don't we look at, JT and how this came about and look at his past few years. So, on the topic of JT and grinding through the NA scene, if you see here, I mean, he came over with ATK and some of this South African core, and then moved on to Cloud9, then grinded through teams that were very temporary, finally got his break on Complexity, and I think that's probably where we should, take a look at it. So, a player like JT joining a organization like Complexity, who have had a troubled past for really since the early days of CSGO, and to take them and genuine be we could call them competitive team. I would say the fringes of T1, but by far the highest peaks that they've ever had is just incredibly impressive from them. And then having players like you see here, Grim played the best that he's played under JT. Halzerk, same story. All these players just by far perform the best with JT leading them. And I think that says a huge amount for an IGL. And I'm also going to go one step further in that I also think that JT has probably looked the best that I've seen an IGL look in terms of fragging. Whenever I watch his play, he looks competent. And that is big for an IGL. Like, I think a lot of times in IGL, where you say their biggest asset is how they make other players play, he's looked competent and looked like genuinely really good at sometimes. And I would argue the past probably 2 years, maybe since like Elige left Complexity, he's looked even better. And what I've seen Complexity play against these big European teams, JT doesn't look out of place or overcalled or outmatched or like over skilled. He looks right there with them. And I think that that's a huge thing. Maybe it's just an eye test and maybe it's not like the most representative of what JT can do. But I mean, I think it's just a huge bonus and something to look forward to. I mean, like, look at some of these stats. I think it's just a very good thing to have if Liquid can just get a stable IGL who is competent in fragging and also, gets the most out of their players. Because I would still argue that players like Elige, players like NAF, I think Malbs is a huge addition to Team Liquid. All these players are still the best that NA has to offer. You might say, unfortunately, maybe it's unfortunately, but you've seen flashes and glimpses and one map here and there from these players. And I think somebody like JT, who's just proven it and slogged through tier 2 for this long, is just the right guy to bring this along. And so for the first time in a long time, and maybe I'm jinxing it, I think that Liquid is making the right move. The next piece of the puzzle for Team Liquid that I'll touch on briefly is Jorko, who I will just be straight up, I had never heard of before Team Liquid. But somebody that obviously has a talent. If you look at HLTV, 91 sniping, 94 clutching. I mean, 17 years old. Who knows? It's a flyer on a genuine opper. Somebody that, hopefully a player like JT who's been around the block and played with all these different oppers, all these different teams, you would hope could come in and bring somebody like this who clearly has the talent and get the best out of them. I think it's just another interesting piece that hopefully JT can then solve and hopefully at the very least, like, look, Liquid is not, we're not looking at Team Liquid for fans as like major winners, but just competent, and I think Jorko is a good piece for that. So now why don't we summarize this up and what do we expect? So if JT truly is the pickup, which everything seems to point to, and I mean, look, Liquid has made some blunders in the past, but I think it just lines up too well. It makes too much sense. So all we can do is hope, right? If that is the case, I mean, I think JT deserves it. I think Liquid deserves it. I think JT is the right move. And I think JT is in a prime position to get the most out of players that we know can do it in NAF, in Elige, and Mobs for sure. And just at the very least, bring some consistency. I think Shui, I don't know what happened, man. I mean, I was so high on Shui. Whenever I saw him with Mouse, it always looked so good. And it was so interesting to see an IGL who clearly had that much influence at such a young age with all those like young pieces. And it was really incredible to see. And it was really interesting where I thought he was going to go. I thought he was going to be highly sought after. Everybody was going to want him. And when Liquid got him, I was actually really hyped. Like, I thought it made so much sense. Again, I kind of said the same thing, like a proven IGL who could get the most out of players like NAF and Elige. But for whatever reason, I don't know, man, it just didn't work. And maybe there's something to be said with bringing players in from overseas or something that doesn't work in Liquid. Who knows? Because there's a ton of players that like that, just in recent memory, Kindar. I mean, I don't even know. We don't need to go through that. That's a whole nother video. But I think breaking that trend and just genuinely having a IGL who's been tier 2 and I mean tier 1 at times with complexity, IGL come in and just hopefully steady the ship. I'm excited. I think it's a really just first time in a long time that I think an NA IGL, now granted he's from South Africa, but I'm saying like an NA player who's played in NA and is not just like an import from Europe into it, somebody who's been grinding away in the doldrums of tier 2 CS for super long and has really proven themselves to be worth this opportunity. I'm really excited and I hope it works. I think it makes so much sense and it's the right move, and Liquid is finally doing it. But yeah, guys, I mean, what do you guys think? Is this what Liquid needs? Is it, where did Liquid go from here? Like, what's the ceiling now with Jorko, with JT? What is their likely outcome of this? Are they a tournament winner? Are they worse? Are they slightly better? What do we think?